nest unless there's more in here. 20 or 22 there.
All right, so now we're gonna excavate some nests. Looks like these females were laying last night. John's
I don't think there's
digging
anything
one
in this. I don't think there's anything here, but we'll see.
So what he does is he marks the ones he knows for sure with like a little skewer with orange paint on it. You can see here the female, when they excavate, they dig out with the front legs right there. With the amount of turtles he has, these banks just get so dug up, so torn up. At some point becomes kind of a, would you say it becomes kind of a guessing game?
Yeah,
More, for sure.
everybody's got their own area, but they like to play games.
Yeah, hide those eggs. Let's go ahead and excavate this one over here.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure all this ground used to look like this grass.
So you can see where the tail was pressed.
Tail
right in
here,
there.
front legs, dug all this, these out. Of course, tail here. Generally speaking, the nest cavity is going to be right in here, and if you can feel for that soft spot where the earth's been moved, you can kind of just get right to the nest cavity, and it comes out, the dirt comes out so much easier where the nest was excavated, the throat of the nest. And then you get to a point where you can just pull the cap out.
You kind of see that chamber starting to open right there.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. White egg.
Yeah. And at this point, you don't know. Sometimes the eggs go forward, sometimes they go back. Their back legs are just like universal joints, and they can pretty much dig down but go about any angle they want after they're after they, get the hole excavated. I've seen them go just any direction. And that's when you get into when you're pulling the eggs out of the roof of the nest, and they're stuck up in there. And there's numero uno.
Check that guy out. How cool is that little alligator snapping turtle egg?
And then we're gonna expose the whole clutch here to get into the top eggs.
Oh, you can see him down in there.
How many eggs will we get out of this one? 28 would be a good guess.
Is that what you guys do? Like when you dig them, you like to guess how many are going to be in each clutch?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And with the paper bag, we'll sometimes even write a number or
Put like a
have
wager
the
on
number
it?
already on there. Yeah.
Sometimes the number will be right that's on the bag.
28 is the average for the year, I think. What's for yesterday?
But we had some real outliers. We had the biggest nest I've ever excavated at 62 eggs. Okay, now if you want to look from this angle, Greg, you can see how the eggs are stuck into they've been placed up into in other words, I've got to pull this egg down to get it out.
Yeah, she tucked them up in there.
And that's pretty typical. You look at sometimes the volume of the eggs, and it's substantial, and how the turtle knows to dig a certain size nest, and it seems to always be good. Yeah, it seems to always be right. That looks like about it. Sometimes you really have to go around several times because there'll be a phantom egg or two kind of placed just a little off to the side or packed in a little bit. Let's see what we got here. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, we blew by 28, 28, 30.
And I'll point out too, like you had told me yesterday, with these eggs, they're still early enough in the development cycle. You don't have to worry about keeping them right side up.
Right. These were obviously laid last night. Now what we will see, the weather hasn't turned towards the 90s yet. When the weather gets warmer, the eggs will chalk over in the nest, the top ones especially, within a day. But as cool as it is now, what is it, 75 out here or something like that? You just have a considerable time before you can see these just look perfectly white, but when they start to begin to form, like a little air bubble under it's just chalk white. And then if you examine closely on the opposite side of the chalk white, the yolk will be pasted to the bottom. So like the turtle is in there in a certain position, and at that point you got to take them out and right side up. Usually the chalk is always at the top of the egg, but you have to, at that point, you have to respect that they can't be turned, or you'll probably have, an egg that won't hatch. So.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect example of digging up a clutch.
Yeah. So we got front legs here, and pretty much about halfway back to the back of the animal. It isn't always that way. Sometimes, they might be over here, but generally speaking, it's a good place to start right down there. And once you find that little soft spot in the dirt, you can tell because it's been recently excavated, and it's just softer. He's over there keeping a watchful eye on us. Somebody's got to. Keeping them in the paper bags, I have a lot less of the morphs, I guess you'd call them, the hypos, the cystics, whatever. I used to hatch 35 or 40 a year of these color aberrant little alligator snappers, but since I started putting them in paper sacks, you just don't have it. People think that it's genetic, that these hypos and color morphs. I just don't believe that anymore. I think it's all got to do with radiation from the sun hitting something that should never happen in the wild. And I think they're cool looking animals, but it's just not my deal. Just try to keep it natural as much as possible until we get them up to the house and get them sorted, counted, and put away.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out that, with these turtles, like, you're not getting multiple clutches a year. You get one shot every year to dig the nest and do it right.
Right.
Yep. Pritchard seemed to think that they didn't lay every year, and kind of discussed that as being a possibly nutritionally challenged thing. And I don't know that I don't know if I believe that. I just don't think wild animals are having any trouble getting a food source, especially something as versatile as the alligator snapping turtle, because they'll just eat whatever their environment provides them, whether it's persimmons falling off a tree or tupelo fruit or clams and mussels. They just take what's in their environment, make it work.
All right, so what's the biggest clutch you guys dug this year?
62.
Is that a record?
Bigger by far than any year we've had. I've seen 53s, 48s, but 62. That's 8 more than I've ever seen.
And then if you get in the fifth, it's 62.
You can tell when it's two different turtles laying in a nest, and when they've ran together, when a nest cavity has run, it's almost like a vein connecting the two, and you can see the size of the eggs.
And sometimes you'll see where they'll dig up a few eggs out of one nest when the other one's excavating, and they shred them, and that's why you've got two nests running together. But that 62 I dug yesterday, or a couple days ago, it was out of one hole, and the eggs were all uniform, so it was one turtle. That's just crazy amount.
It looked like a meteorite hit the ground where you pull those eggs out.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you have a lot of turtles in here. I mean, is there one that would be big enough to do that?
Yeah, there's it was a 78-pound female, which is by far the biggest I've ever seen in my life. 20.5-inch carapace. Where we've just found another nest, we found a few inches back, another nest where the eggs have chopped over. They've started to get that little white part on the top there. And with as cool as it's been, these are probably like 5 days old. So they've just started to develop. These are actually the first chalked over eggs we've found in 4,500 eggs this year, so pretty good. If you are careful and you uncover the nest, and you can just pull them out as they are and just set them right in the box. And just like nature intended.
All right, so right now I am in the greenhouse here at Loggerhead Acres. I'm here with John Richards, and this is where he starts out. When you see these eggs, this is where the hatchlings are gonna go. So they're gonna go into this greenhouse and this amazing setup that he's made, this big long tank. And this is where he starts off those little hatchling alligator snapping turtles. And I'm gonna let him talk about why he built this, why he set this up, and what's important about it.
Yeah, I figured the best way that I could do this was to try to give them as much surface area as possible. Shallow water. I use mason sands, which they can just sink in like quicksand. It's so small, so much easier for them to work with than clay sand. And I just really like them to be able to bury, conceal themselves. I think there's a sense of security that they get out of just sinking into the sand and looking so stealth. And a lot of times you'll see nothing but a tail sticking out maybe, and the head, and them just luring down on the, you know, while 3/4 of the way buried in the sand. Came up with the idea of putting them on top of each other and plumbing them together and run them out of a sump that pumps the water from both ends of the tanks to where there's good oxygenation and water flow. And the water is filtered. It's also filtered through the aquaponics grow beds that break down the ammonias and the nitrates, and you know, it's worked pretty good. They hibernate in here. I can heat this water up until about middle of November, generally speaking, and then I let them hibernate for a couple of months, and then I'll start heating the water again in March, where they just have kind of an abbreviated winter. They're not growing at a crazy pace or anything. They're still small, but they're, you know, got good body fat, and they're all over in here. I mean, they're that's about how fat you want them. Not crazy fat, but just filled out. But it's important to look at these guys. You don't want them too fat. You don't want them too lean. And yeah, he's a little fat, but on the hatchlings, I don't mind it so much. It's just, yeah, I hate seeing the larger turtles just fed too much, and moderate feeding is best. But these guys are all over. They're here, there's one there.
Yeah, you can see there's just like a tail right there. Like
the Where's Waldo thing.
Yeah, that's a cool setup. I like it. I like that it's completely natural. Like, I go out in the field a lot and I see these guys in the wild, and this is almost exactly what I see when I'm wading around. Is when I hit these little shallow areas strewn with driftwood and logs, this is where you typically are going to find, you know, the smaller ones.
Yeah, they like to be underneath or wedged up underneath structure, whether it's driftwood, logs, a rock bank or cliff, undercut. That's just their comfort zone. And if they don't have it, they'll kind of dig one out and make it. As I found with my adults, undercut the bank and made like underground caverns under the banks. These are tanks, I believe, are 16 feet long and almost 3 feet wide. And here we got more in various stages of.
Yeah, you just see the little tails. Some of them you see tails and shells, some of them only a tail, some of them pretty much nothing at all.
Right. Well, yeah, there's ones that go completely under, and they sure can, but generally speaking, they just partially submerge. And you can tell that's just what they like to do, you know? But slow-growing animals, and that's just kind of the way they were meant to be.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Full of attitude.
So when you sell these to somebody, you recommend a setup like this?
Well, I recommend, if they're using an aquarium, to make a shallow end that's maybe this deep or deeper, and then graduate your sand or put some kind of divider in there where you can have a deeper end, where you can have more water, just so for the sake of having more water available for like I was saying earlier, the biomass of having fish, having turtles, feeding turtles, creates waste, creates ammonia and nitrites, and those are toxic to fish and animals, and you know, higher concentrations. So another thing, you know, I've used rainwater for this tank, these tanks that's plumbed in these rain barrels I have. And a problem that I've noticed that happens with people that use tap water is the tap water will evaporate and people just add more tap water. Well, the hardness doesn't evaporate out of the water. You do that for several months and you've just got a toxic, hard water stew that is not comfortable for the animals, and can lead to some really debilitating conditions, if not death. And that is a definite hard water, ultra hard water issue. If you notice, all these guys have little pencil point tails because this water is rainwater and it's as soft as water can be. And that's the way I like to keep them, to where when people get them, they, you know, look 100%.
It's perfect.
There's a little alcove of them.
So earlier in the video we were talking about why they use paper bags and how the sun and the UV was possibly affecting the eggs, and these are what were at some point, I guess people still call these leucistics or hypos or whatever, but your dad was saying that you guys don't really hatch these that much anymore since you started using paper bags. I mean, what's the story?
I remember us getting 30 to 35 of these, and we even had certain people that were interested in them. And the numbers just dwindled over the years. And, you know, the paper bag is something that happened in the last few years, but before that we even started covering the eggs with a towel from the sun when we were out picking them up, because it used to be back in the day we were just carrying buckets of eggs. But yeah, less and less of these, and I totally believe that the sun has something to do with it, because, you know, these turtles lay at night. The rays, they, you know, a little bit of radiation changes a lot.
Yeah. I mean, they're really cool looking. They're kind of bizarre looking, the way that there's like almost no pigment in the eye, and
right.
The pattern is kind of all over the place, and the shell has kind of a different shape to it.
Yep.
But anything else that you guys have noticed over the years about these?
Well, they're, I mean, the leucistics, sometimes they make it, sometimes they don't. It seems to me like just a little more unstable genetics, and anything can go wrong. Everything could go right, but if one thing goes wrong, boom.
They start out to be finicky eaters.
And so maybe some people are into that. You know, they want a little,
they like
different
that color.
Yeah, they like appearance over anything.
Yep. But man, I do like some of the bandings that you get on them and the different.
One of the cooler things is look at the pattern, the jaw pattern on this guy.
Yeah.
The lamina is really light colored with those dark streaks in it. And that on these hypos, the inside lining of the mouth is kind of that cream pink color. Normally it would be a gunmetal gray with the pink lure in there. And you get these patterns on the side of the head. So they are pretty cool. There's a little 6 or 7 inch one. They got too big for somebody's tank, and they arranged to send them back, send them a shipping label to where they can send it back. Good body fat on this turtle, it's well taken care of, nice tail. Does not have a good lure, which just happens with some of them. Their lure doesn't stay red, and this is one of those turtles. But nicely sculpted shell, pretty good representative of a captive bred turtle. This turtle's probably 3 to 4 years old. And so if they do get too big, I much prefer that people trade them in for smaller ones, and instead of letting them go in areas where they might not exist, and locals find it and don't know what the heck it is, and then you end up laws making them a prohibited species because some people get scared.
Yeah.
But good looking animal.
Yeah, and right now there's a lot of laws being written because people release some things where they shouldn't have released
the
things.
whole python thing, and yep.
So where can people get these?
Loggerhead Acres Turtle Farm, turtleman.com.
Only here.
Our Facebook page under Loggerhead Acres Turtle Farm, and it's hooked up to our Instagram as well.
Yep.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys for having us out. I'm glad I was able to kind of share what you guys do here. Everything you guys do here is amazing. Obviously, this is one of my favorite turtle species, and it's awesome to get to see people that are kind of become like the source and been doing it really. I would say you're one of the few guys been doing it the longest and learned the most over a lot of years, and it's really cool to kind of swap stories and trade information.
Yeah, and your story and your experience with observing them in the wild was just awesome, and really just tweaked my brain as far as some of the habitats that they exist and thrive in that are much different than what typically people think about alligator snapper environment, swamps and bios and stuff. There's a lot more to it, and the animals are a lot more adaptable than people give them credit for as a species.
Yeah.
So it was great that you could make it up and spend a few days with us.
Yeah, it was worth the 10 hours.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for watching this video. Like always, like, comment, subscribe. More videos coming. Thank you so much to John and Schuyler. We'll see you guys later. Peace.